30,000 feet. Both pilots panicking, slurring words. We've been drugged. Someone poisoned us. We're losing consciousness. Does anyone know how to fly? Please God help us. They collapsed. 234 passengers screaming in terror. Nobody could fly the plane. Then a small voice, call sign Falcon. I can fly it. My daddy taught me. An 11-year-old girl stood up. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. United Airlines Flight 1288 pushed back from the gate at Chicago O'Hare at 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. The Boeing 737 was bound for Los Angeles, carrying 234 passengers and a crew of 6. In seat 12B, squeezed into the middle seat of economy class, sat 11-year-old Alexis Morgan. Everyone called her Lexi. She was small for her age. At just 4 feet 2 inches tall and weighing only 62 pounds, she looked more like she was 8 or 9. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail with a pink scrunchie. She wore a faded Disney Princess Elsa t-shirt that her daddy had bought her last Christmas. When she smiled, which wasn't often these days, you could see she was missing her left front tooth. It had fallen out just last week. Lexi had cried when that tooth fell out. Not because it hurt, but because her daddy wasn't there anymore to put $5 under her pillow from the tooth fairy. Her grandmother had only left $1, and it wasn't the same. Nothing was the same without daddy. The flight attendant, a kind woman named Jennifer with blonde hair and a warm smile, stopped by Lexi's seat during boarding. She checked the special tag on Lexi's backpack that marked her as an unaccompanied minor. Hi sweetie, Jennifer said, kneeling down to Lexi's level. Are you traveling alone today? Is this your first time flying by yourself? Lexi shook her head. Her voice was quiet. I fly alone lots. I'm going to my Aunt Sarah's house in LA. My daddy used to fly with me, but he... Her voice broke. She couldn't finish the sentence. Jennifer's heart ached. She could see the sadness in this little girl's eyes. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Well, I'll take very good care of you, okay? You just press this button if you need anything. She pointed to the call button above Lexi's seat. Lexi nodded silently, fighting back tears. The businessman in seat 12A glanced at her briefly, then went back to his laptop. Divorced parents situation, he thought. Not my problem. The college student in seat 12C had her headphones in, lost in her own world of music and social media. Nobody paid attention to the small girl in the middle seat. Lexi pulled out her coloring book from her unicorn sticker-covered backpack. She opened it to a page with a picture of an airplane flying through clouds. She picked up a blue crayon and started coloring the sky. But as she colored, tears began to fall onto the paper, making the blue crayon smudge and blur. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and kept coloring. She had to be brave. That's what Daddy would have wanted. Inside her backpack, hidden beneath her Nintendo Switch and her stuffed animals, was a small framed photo. It showed a tall man in a green flight suit, standing next to an F-22 Raptor fighter jet. He had dark hair, a strong jaw, and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. On his chest was a name tag that read, COLM Morgan. And above his heart was a patch with a coiled viper snake. That was her daddy. Colonel Marcus Viper Morgan. And he was never coming home. 6 months earlier, Lexi had been at school when 2 Air Force officers in their dress uniforms came to her classroom. She knew immediately from their faces why they were there. She didn't need them to say the words. Daddy wasn't coming home. The last thing he had said to her that morning was, "Falcon, keep practicing your approaches, okay? I'll quiz you tonight when I get home." But he never came home. Colonel Marcus Morgan had been on a routine training mission. His F-22 Raptor was engaged in a mock dogfight exercise with another pilot. Everything was going according to plan until it wasn't. When Marcus ejected from his aircraft, the ejection seat malfunctioned. The rockets that were supposed to fire properly didn't. He ejected at the wrong angle. His parachute deployed, but Marcus was already unconscious from the impact. He landed hard in a field. By the time the medevac helicopter arrived, he was gone. Marcus Morgan had survived 87 combat missions over 14 years. He had flown in the most dangerous war zones in the world. He had dodged missiles, outmaneuvered enemy fighters, and brought his jet home safely every single time. His call sign, Viper, had been earned on his very first combat mission when he eliminated 3 enemy aircraft in under 2 minutes with what his squadron commander called Viper Strike Precision. He was considered the finest fighter pilot of his generation. And he died during a training exercise because of a mechanical failure. The funeral was held with full military honors. Lexi wore a black dress that was too big for her. She stood at the grave site surrounded by her daddy's entire squadron. They were all there in their dress blues, standing at attention, tears on many of their faces. They gave Lexi his wings. They gave her his call sign patch with the coiled Viper. And they gave her something else, a portable flight simulator game. Colonel Webb, Marcus's squadron commander, knelt beside Lexi at the funeral. He was a big man with gray hair and a gentle voice. "Your daddy was the best pilot I ever knew," Webb told her, his own voice thick with emotion. "He talked about you constantly. He said you were going to be an even better pilot than him someday." Lexi's face crumpled. "But I don't want to be a pilot," she sobbed. "I want my daddy." Webb pulled her into a hug while she cried against his uniform. What nobody at that funeral knew, what even Colonel Webb didn't fully understand, was just how much Marcus had prepared his daughter for this moment. Marcus Morgan had known he flew dangerous missions. Every time he climbed into his F-22, he knew there was a chance he might not come back. And he knew that if something happened to him, his daughter would be alone. Lexi's mother, Emily, had died in a car accident when Lexi was only 2 years old. Marcus had raised his daughter by himself while flying some of the most dangerous combat missions in the Air Force. Other pilots told him he was taking extreme risks. The base psychologist warned him, "You're being reckless. You have a daughter to think about." But Marcus wasn't being reckless. He was being careful. He was preparing. When Lexi turned 4 years old, Marcus installed something in their basement. It was a professional flight simulator, the exact same software and equipment used to train actual pilots. It cost him thousands of dollars. It took up half the basement. And he started teaching his 4-year-old daughter how to fly. At first, Lexi thought it was just a game. A fun activity she got to do with Daddy. She didn't realize it was real pilot training. She would climb into the simulator seat, her little legs dangling because she was too small to reach the pedals, and Marcus would guide her through the basics. "Okay, Falcon," he would say with a smile. "This is your first lesson. This is called the throttle. This controls how much power the engine makes." "Like the gas pedal in the car?" little Lexi asked. "Exactly like that. You're so smart." By the time Lexi was 5, she could identify every single instrument on an F-22 Raptor's control panel. By age 6, she could execute basic takeoff and landing procedures in the simulator. By age 7, she was flying emergency scenarios, engine failures, system malfunctions, loss of hydraulics. Marcus made it playful. He made it fun. He would radio to her through the simulator's headset, "This is Viper to Falcon. You're my wingman today. We're going to practice formation flying." Lexi would giggle as she tried to keep her virtual aircraft aligned with his. She crashed a lot at first. But Marcus was patient. He would reset the simulator and they would try again. And again. And again. By the time Lexi was 8 years old, she was flying instrument-only approaches in zero visibility conditions. By age 9, she had logged 1,200 hours in the simulator. That was more than the minimum hours required for a commercial pilot's license. By age 10, she was flying scenarios that would challenge veteran pilots with decades of experience. Marcus's squadron buddies would sometimes come over and watch Lexi fly. They were amazed. "Viper, your kid flies better than half our new lieutenants," one of them said, shaking his head in disbelief. They started jokingly calling her Falcon because of her sharp, focused flying style. The name stuck. Marcus loved it. But Marcus drilled something into his daughter during all those hours of training. Over and over, he made her promise. "Falcon," he would say seriously, pausing the simulator to look into her eyes. "If I'm ever not here, you remember this training, okay? You remember everything I taught you. Promise, Daddy." "I promise, Daddy," Lexi would say, not really understanding what he meant. "If you're ever in an airplane emergency, you use what I taught you. You don't give up. You fly the airplane. Can you promise me that?" "I promise." Marcus would hug her tight. "That's my girl. That's my Falcon." 6 months ago, Marcus went on his final flight. And Lexi understood, too late, why he had made her promise. Flight 1288 reached its cruising altitude of 30,000 feet. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers relaxed, pulled out their phones and laptops, ordered drinks. In the cockpit, Captain David Morrison and First Officer Sarah Walsh were managing the flight. Both were experienced pilots. Morrison had been flying for United for 23 years. Walsh had 14 years of experience. Between them, they had logged over 30,000 hours of flight time. They were professionals. They had flown this route hundreds of times. In the galley at the front of the aircraft, Jennifer prepared the beverage cart for the cabin service. She also poured 2 cups of coffee from the crew's coffee maker for the pilots. It was standard procedure. The pilots drank coffee to stay alert during flights. What Jennifer didn't know was that 30 minutes earlier, during boarding, a passenger had accessed the galley. His name was Michael Torres. He was a 34-year-old pharmaceutical sales representative. He told Jennifer he was looking for the bathroom. But that wasn't what he was doing. Michael Torres was going through a difficult divorce. His ex-wife was on this flight, sitting in first class with their 2 young children. She was taking the kids to Los Angeles to live with her. Michael was desperate. He wanted to see his kids. He wanted more time. In his pocket was a small plastic bag containing crushed Ambien powder. He was a pharmaceutical rep, he had access to medications. His plan was simple, or so he thought. He would put the sedative into his ex-wife's coffee. She would become drowsy. The flight attendants would notice. They would declare a medical emergency and return to Chicago. He would get more time with his kids. It was a stupid plan. A desperate plan. But in his hurried, panicked state, Michael made a critical mistake. There were 2 coffee makers in the galley. One was for the passengers. One was for the crew. Michael mixed them up. He dumped the crushed Ambien into the wrong coffee pot. The crew's coffee pot. Jennifer delivered the poisoned coffee to the cockpit. Captain Morrison drank his immediately. First Officer Walsh drank hers seconds later. 35 minutes into the flight, Captain Morrison rubbed his eyes. "I'm feeling a little weird," he said. "A little dizzy." "Me too," Walsh replied. "That's strange." Both pilots assumed it was just fatigue. Long days, irregular sleep schedules. It happened sometimes. But at 40 minutes, Morrison's head felt heavy. Everything was blurry. "I'm getting really drowsy," he said, his voice slurring slightly. "I can't focus." "Same," Walsh said. She blinked hard, trying to clear her vision. "Something's wrong." Both pilots realized it at the same moment. "The coffee," Morrison said. He picked up his cup and sniffed it. "Did yours taste weird?" We've been drugged, Walsh said, horror in her voice. Captain Morrison immediately keyed his radio. Denver Center, United 1288, declaring emergency. Both pilots experiencing possible poisoning. Need immediate assistance. The air traffic controller's voice came back, confused. United 1288, say again. You're experiencing what? Someone drugged our coffee, Morrison said, his speech becoming more slurred. Both of us. We're losing consciousness. In the cabin, passengers heard none of this yet. They were drinking their sodas, reading their books, watching movies on their seatback screens. In seat 12B, Lexi was coloring. She had moved on from the airplane picture to a drawing of a house with a family standing in front. She drew a tall man, a small girl, and wrote, "Me and Daddy," at the bottom. Fresh tears fell on the page. In the cockpit, Captain Morrison knew he had only seconds left before he passed out completely. He had to warn the passengers. He had to find help. He reached for the cabin intercom with a shaking hand. What happened next would traumatize 234 passengers for the rest of their lives. Captain Morrison's voice came over the cabin speakers. It was weak, slurred, desperate. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Morrison. Someone on this plane has poisoned both me and my first officer. We're losing consciousness. The aircraft is on autopilot, but that will only work for a limited time. I don't know if we'll wake up. Does anyone on board know how to fly? Anyone with any flight experience, please come to the cockpit immediately. Please, God, if anyone can fly, come forward now." His voice trailed off. In the cockpit, he slumped unconscious over the controls. First Officer Walsh tried to stay awake. She fought it with everything she had. "I'm trying," she mumbled into the radio. "I can't, someone help us." She also passed out. For 3 full seconds, the cabin was completely silent. Every passenger was frozen, unable to process what they had just heard. Then someone screamed. And the entire aircraft erupted into chaos. People jumped out of their seats. Passengers grabbed their phones, calling loved ones. "The pilots have been poisoned. We're going to crash. Tell Mom I love her." A businessman in first class was yelling, "We're all going to die. We're all dead." A mother clutched her 2 young children, sobbing uncontrollably. A teenager was posting on social media, "Pilots were drugged on my flight. We're all going to die. This is real." An elderly man near the back began praying loudly, "Our Father, who art in heaven." Jennifer, the flight attendant, grabbed the intercom. Her voice was shaking. "Is there anyone on board with flight experience? Anyone who knows how to fly? Please." She began walking rapidly through the cabin, checking with passengers. "Sir, can you fly?" "No." "Ma'am, do you have any flight training?" "No." She asked 20 passengers. 30. 50. Nobody could fly. "We're all going to die," Jennifer said, tears streaming down her face. "Nobody knows how to fly." In seat 12B, Lexi sat frozen. Her coloring book lay forgotten in her lap. She was listening to everything. Her small hands gripped Mr. Bear, the stuffed animal that her daddy had given her when she was 3. In her mind, she heard her daddy's voice. It was a memory from one of their training sessions. "Falcon, listen to me. If you're ever on an airplane and there's an emergency, you use what I taught you. You hear me? You use everything. You can save people, baby girl. You're strong enough." "But Daddy, I'm just a kid." "You're not just a kid. You're Falcon. You're my daughter. And you can do anything." Lexi sat in her seat, her whole body shaking. Everyone around her was screaming, crying, panicking. The businessman next to her was shouting into his phone, "Tell my family I love them. The pilots are unconscious. We're going to crash. Lexi looked down at her backpack. Inside was the photo of her daddy. Inside was the portable simulator he had given her. Inside was everything he had left behind. She thought about staying quiet. She was 11 years old. Who would listen to her? Who would believe her? But then she thought about her promise. She had promised Daddy. She had promised that if she was ever in this situation, she would try. And Lexi Morgan kept her promises. She took a deep breath. Her voice came out small at first, barely audible over the screaming. Excuse me. Nobody heard her. She tried again, louder. Excuse me, miss. The businessman in 12A heard her. He turned, annoyed. What, kid? Lexi's voice was shaking. I can fly it. I know how. The businessman stared at her for a second, then laughed. It was a cruel laugh. Sweetie, this isn't pretend. Go back to your coloring. But Lexi stood up on her seat so people could see her. She shouted as loud as she could. I'm not pretending. My daddy taught me. I can fly. The entire cabin went silent. Every head turned. They all saw the same thing, a tiny 11-year-old girl with a missing front tooth, wearing a Disney princess t-shirt, standing on her seat and claiming she could fly a commercial jet. Jennifer rushed over to Lexi. She knelt down, trying to be gentle despite her panic. Honey, that's very sweet, but this isn't a video game. I know it's not a game. Lexi said, and now she was crying. I've been training since I was 4 years old. I have 2,800 hours. My daddy taught me. The college student in 12C laughed. 2,800 hours. In what, Roblox? That made Lexi angry. She wiped her tears and looked directly at the college student. My daddy was Colonel Marcus Morgan. His call sign was Viper. He flew F-22 Raptors. He trained me every single day for 7 years because he knew his missions were dangerous. He made me practice in case something happened to him. He called me Falcon. That's my call sign. And he died 6 months ago making sure I knew how to do this. Her voice broke and fresh tears poured down her face. So please let me try, because he would be so mad at me if I let everyone die when he spent my whole life teaching me how to save them. Please. The cabin was dead silent now. Everyone was staring at this tiny crying girl. Jennifer's hand went to her mouth. Your father was Colonel Morgan. The fighter pilot? Yes, Lexi sobbed. And he made me promise that if I was ever on a plane in an emergency, I would use what he taught me. I promised him. I can't break my promise to my daddy. Jennifer pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. She was looking up, Colonel Marcus Morgan F-22 pilot. The results came back immediately. News articles. Military records. Obituaries from 6 months ago. Legendary F-22 pilot Colonel Viper Morgan dies in training accident. There were photos. A man in a flight suit standing next to a fighter jet. And in several photos, a small girl standing next to him, smiling and giving a thumbs up. It was Lexi. Jennifer looked at the little girl, then back at her phone. Oh my God. You're really his daughter. Yes, Lexi whispered. Jennifer made an immediate decision. She grabbed the phone that connected to air traffic control. Denver Center, this is United 1288. We have a situation. We have an 11-year-old passenger who claims to be the daughter of deceased F-22 pilot Colonel Marcus Morgan. She claims she's been trained to fly. We need verification immediately. There was a pause on the other end. Then, stand by, United 1288. In the cabin, passengers were still in shock. Some were skeptical. Others were desperate enough to believe anything. She's a child, someone said. She's all we have, someone else replied. Meanwhile, the call from United 1288 had triggered an emergency protocol. Air traffic control contacted the Air Force. Within 5 minutes, they had located Colonel Jonathan Webb, Marcus Morgan's former squadron commander. Webb was at home when his phone rang. When they told him what was happening, he grabbed his keys and raced to the nearest Air Force base. 20 minutes after Lexi first spoke up, Colonel Webb's voice came through the cockpit radio. Jennifer had brought Lexi to the cockpit door. The pilots were still unconscious in their seats. Lexi could see them through the open door, slumped over, not moving. It was terrifying. United 1288, this is Colonel Webb, United States Air Force. Did you say Alexis Morgan? Viper's daughter? Jennifer held the phone down so Lexi could speak. Her voice was tiny and scared. Colonel Webb? It's me. Lexi. Falcon. There was a pause. When Webb spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Falcon. Oh my God. Falcon, is this really you? Yes, sir. Your dad told us about your training. He said you logged massive simulator hours. Is that true? Yes, sir. 2,800 hours. Daddy made me practice every day. All different aircraft types, including commercial jets like this one. I've done emergency scenarios exactly like this one. On the other end, Colonel Webb was conferencing with Air Force Command, FAA officials, and aviation experts. They had an impossible decision to make. Option 1, let an 11-year-old child attempt to fly and land a commercial jet. Option 2, wait and hope the pilots wake up before the autopilot runs out. Medical assessment, the sedative was strong. The pilots would likely be unconscious for 4 to 6 hours. The aircraft had fuel for 3 hours. The autopilot would disengage in 90 minutes. If they waited, everyone would die when the autopilot failed and the plane crashed into the Rocky Mountains. An aviation psychologist asked the question everyone was thinking: can an 11-year-old child handle this level of psychological pressure? Colonel Webb's voice was firm. Viper trained her for exactly this. He knew she would face impossible situations. He prepared her mentally and technically. I've seen her fly simulators at age 9. She was better than most adults. If Viper believed in her, then I believe in her. The decision was made. Colonel Webb spoke directly to Lexi. Falcon, are you ready to fly this airplane? Lexi's voice was shaking. I'm scared, Colonel. What if I mess up? What if everyone dies because of me? Webb's voice was gentle but firm. Your daddy told me something once. He said, being scared means you understand the stakes. Being brave means doing it anyway. He believed in you more than anyone in this world. And now we all believe in you. So I need you to bring these people home, Falcon. Can you do that? Lexi closed her eyes. She thought about her daddy. She thought about all those hours in the basement simulator. She thought about her promise. Yes, sir. I can do it. That's my girl. Let's get started. Jennifer helped Lexi into the cockpit. The moment Lexi stepped through that door, her entire world changed. This wasn't a simulator in a basement. This wasn't a game. This was real. The cockpit was cramped and filled with instruments. Captain Morrison was slumped over the controls, unconscious and barely breathing. First Officer Walsh was collapsed in her seat. The only sound was the steady hum of the engines and the beeping of various instruments. Through the windscreen, Lexi could see endless blue sky and white clouds. Somewhere far below was the ground. Somewhere ahead were the Rocky Mountains. Okay, Jennifer said, her voice shaking. You need to sit here. She helped Lexi into the first officer's seat. Immediately there was a problem. Lexi was too small. Her feet didn't reach the pedals. She could barely see over the instrument panel. I can't reach. Lexi said, panic rising in her voice. It's okay, we'll fix it. Jennifer grabbed cushions from the passenger cabin and stacked them in the seat. She helped Lexi climb on top of them. Then she adjusted the seat all the way forward. Now Lexi could see. Now her feet could reach the rudder pedals, though she had to stretch. She looked at the instrument panel in front of her. There were hundreds of switches, buttons, displays, and gauges. But Lexi's daddy had trained her well. She recognized most of them. Altitude, 30,000 feet, she read out loud, her voice steadying slightly. Speed, 480 knots. Autopilot engaged. Heading, 270. Fuel showing, 3 hours. Colonel Webb's voice came through the headset. Perfect, Falcon. You're reading the instruments correctly. Now first thing, we need to try to wake up the pilots. There's a medical kit in the cockpit. Look for smelling salts. Lexi found the white medical kit mounted on the wall. Inside were bandages, medications, and a small package labeled, ammonia inhalants, smelling salts. She broke open the capsule and held it under Captain Morrison's nose. Nothing. He stirred slightly but didn't wake. She tried First Officer Walsh. Same result. They won't wake up, Lexi reported, fear creeping back into her voice. The drugs are too strong. Okay, Falcon, that means you're flying, Webb said calmly. Tell me what you see on the autopilot panel. Lexi scanned the center console. It says LNAV and VNAV active. That's lateral navigation and vertical navigation. Altitude hold at 30,000 feet. Heading 270 direct to a waypoint called Rockies. Good. Very good. Now that autopilot will keep working for another 75 minutes. After that, you'll have to fly manually. But we're going to get you on the ground before then. The nearest airport is Billings, Montana. It's about 140 miles ahead. We're going to guide you there, but you need to start descending now. Can you do that? I've done descents in the simulator hundreds of times, Lexi said. Okay, I'm going to talk you through it step by step. First, do you see the throttle levers? Yes. 2 levers between the seats. Good. Very gently, pull them back about 1 inch. That will reduce power and start your descent. Lexi reached out with both hands. The throttle levers were big and heavy. She gripped them and pulled back slowly. The engine's pitch changed immediately. The nose of the aircraft dipped slightly. Through the windscreen, she could see the horizon line starting to rise. They were descending. I did it. Lexi said. Perfect, Falcon. Now look at your vertical speed indicator. That tells you how fast you're going down. What does it say? It says, -1,000. That's good. Keep it there. In the cabin behind Lexi, passengers were trying to process what was happening. A little girl was flying the plane. Some people were praying. Others were filming on their phones. The businessman from 12A stood up and marched toward the cockpit. This is insane, he shouted, pushing past Jennifer. You can't let a child fly this airplane. I demand you land immediately. Jennifer tried to block him. Sir, she's our only option. There has to be someone else. Anyone else? We asked everyone. Nobody can fly. Now get back to your seat. But the businessman pushed through and looked into the cockpit. He saw Lexi, so small she needed cushions to see out the windscreen, her feet barely reaching the pedals. His face went pale. Oh God. We're all dead. Lexi heard this. Tears immediately formed in her eyes. I'm trying my best, she said quietly. Get out. Jennifer screamed at the businessman. You're distracting her. She physically pulled him out of the cockpit and slammed the door. Colonel Webb's voice came through the headset. Falcon, ignore him. Focus on flying. You're doing great. Okay, Lexi whispered, wiping her tears. Daddy always said pilots don't cry in the cockpit. Your daddy cried in the cockpit plenty of times, trust me, Webb said gently. Being emotional doesn't make you weak. Making tough decisions while you're emotional. That's what makes you strong. Keep flying, Falcon. The aircraft descended through 20,000 feet. So far, everything was going according to plan. But that was about to change. Falcon, you need to slow down, Colonel Webb said. Your current speed is 440 knots. That's too fast for low altitude. You need to reduce to 250 knots. How do I slow down? Lexi asked. There should be a button labeled speed brake. Can you find it? Lexi scanned the center console. I see it, but... Daddy's simulator was an F-22. It didn't have this button. I don't know what it does. There was a pause. Okay, that's fine. We'll slow down a different way. Pull the throttles back another inch. Lexi did as instructed. The aircraft slowed but also began descending faster. Descent rate is 2,000 feet per minute now, Lexi reported. That's okay. We want to get down anyway. At 15,000 feet, something happened that nobody expected. An alarm sounded in the cockpit, beep beep beep. A red light flashed on the instrument panel. A computerized voice announced, autopilot disconnect. The aircraft lurched. Lexi's hands flew to the yoke instinctively as the plane began to bank right. It shut off. Lexi screamed. The autopilot shut off. It's okay, Webb said, but she could hear the tension in his voice. You're going to hand fly it. Put your hands on the yoke. That's the steering wheel in front of you. Lexi grabbed the yoke with both hands. It was shaking, vibrating in her grip. It's shaking, she said. That's normal. The aircraft is telling you what it wants to do. But you're in control now. You tell it what to do. See the artificial horizon display? Yes. It has a little airplane symbol. Keep that airplane symbol level with the horizon line. Wings straight. Can you do that? Lexi tried. She pushed the yoke left to level the wings. But she pushed too hard. The aircraft rolled left. In the cabin, passengers felt the plane tilting. More screaming. More panic. I pushed too much. Lexi cried. She corrected right. But again, too much. The plane rocked back and forth. I can't hold it straight. Yes you can, Webb said firmly. Smaller movements. Like you're petting a cat. Tiny adjustments. Lexi tried again. Gentler this time. The aircraft slowly leveled out. She was flying. Actually flying. At 12,000 feet, Lexi was struggling. Her arms were getting tired from holding the yoke. Her feet were cramping from pushing on the rudder pedals. Tears were streaming down her face. Daddy, I can't do it, she sobbed. It's too hard. I want you here. I need you. Colonel Webb heard this through the radio. His own voice cracked with emotion. Falcon, your daddy told me something once. He said, Webb, if anything ever happens to me, Falcon will be okay. I taught her everything. She's stronger than she knows. He believed in you more than anything in this world. But I'm just a kid, Lexi cried. I'm 11 years old. I'm scared. Everyone's going to die because of me. You're not just a kid. You're Falcon. You're Viper's daughter. Now tell me, what would your daddy say right now? Lexi closed her eyes. She could hear her daddy's voice in her memory. She had heard it 1,000 times during their training sessions. He'd say, Falcon, being scared is okay. Quitting is not. Wings level. Power set. Fly the airplane. Everything else is just noise. Then do that, Webb said. Fly the airplane. Block out everything else. Lexi opened her eyes. She wiped her tears on her shoulder. She gripped the yoke and focused on the instruments. Wings level. Power set. Fly the airplane. At 8,000 feet, Billings Airport was visible ahead. Lexi could see the runway, a long strip of gray concrete that looked impossibly small from this altitude. Falcon, you're doing great, Colonel Webb said. Now we need to configure the aircraft for landing. That means putting the flaps down and the landing gear down. Do you know what those are? Yes, sir. Flaps make the wings bigger so we can fly slower. Landing gear is the wheels. Perfect. The flap lever should be on the center console. It has settings from 0 to 40. Lexi found it. I see it. Set it to flaps 1 first. Lexi moved the lever. She heard mechanical sounds as parts of the wings extended. The aircraft slowed and the nose pitched down slightly. Flaps 1, she reported. Good. Now flaps 5. Flaps 5. The aircraft slowed more. She could feel the difference in how it was flying. At 5,000 feet, Colonel Webb said, "Okay Falcon, time for landing gear." The gear lever should have a wheel symbol on it. I found it. Move it down. Lexi pulled the lever down. Immediately, loud mechanical grinding sounds filled the cockpit. The aircraft shook. Lexi's heart jumped into her throat. Something's wrong, she cried. No, that's normal, Webb assured her. That's just the gear extending. Look for 3 green lights. That tells you all 3 wheels are down and locked. Lexi watched the indicator panel. 1 green light appeared. Then a second. Then the third. I have 3 green lights, she said. Perfect. Gear down and locked. You're doing everything right. At 3,000 feet, the runway was getting closer. Lexi could see emergency vehicles lining both sides of it. Fire trucks. Ambulances. There were news helicopters circling in the distance. The whole world was watching an 11-year-old girl attempt the impossible. Falcon, can you see the runway? Webb asked. Yes. It looks small. That's normal. It'll look bigger as you get closer. Now listen carefully. You're going to aim for the first third of the runway. When you get close to the ground, you're going to pull back on the yoke to lift the nose up. That's called flaring. Have you practiced that in the simulator? Yes, sir. Daddy made me practice flaring hundreds of times. Good. Then you know what to do. Trust your training. At 1,000 feet, Lexi could see individual buildings. Cars. People standing and watching. At 500 feet, her hands were shaking on the yoke. I'm too high. I'm going too fast. No, you're not. You're perfect. Just keep coming. Trust the approach. At 200 feet, panic seized Lexi completely. This is too scary. I can't do it. Yes, you can, Falcon, Webb said, and his voice was filled with absolute confidence. Your daddy is watching. Make him proud. Lexi thought about her daddy. She thought about all those hours in the basement. All those practice landings. All those times he told her she could do anything. Okay, Daddy, she whispered. This is for you. At 100 feet, Colonel Webb's voice was calm and steady. Start your flare. Pull back gently. Lexi pulled the yoke back. The nose of the aircraft lifted. The main wheels were now pointing at the runway. At 50 feet, hold it there. Let it settle down. Lexi's arms were shaking from the effort of holding the yoke. The aircraft was heavy. So heavy. At 20 feet, almost there, Falcon. You're doing perfect. At 10 feet, the main wheels touched the runway with a hard thump. The aircraft bounced slightly, then settled back down. I'm down. Lexi shouted. I'm on the runway. Brakes. Webb commanded. Push the pedals at your feet. Lexi pushed with all her strength. The brakes engaged. She could feel the aircraft slowing. But they were still going fast. Too fast. The end of the runway was approaching. It's not stopping fast enough. Lexi cried. Full brakes. Push as hard as you can. Lexi stood up on the pedals, using her entire body weight. The brakes screamed. The aircraft shuddered and shook. They were slowing. Slower. Slower. With 200 feet of runway remaining, the aircraft rolled to a complete stop. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the cockpit door burst open. Jennifer rushed in and pulled Lexi into the tightest hug of her life. Both of them were crying. In the cabin, the passengers erupted. Applause. Crying. Prayers of thanks. People were hugging strangers. Some had collapsed in their seats, overwhelmed with relief. Lexi was sobbing into Jennifer's shoulder. I did it, Daddy. I brought them home. Just like you taught me. Outside, emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft. Paramedics rushed aboard to treat the unconscious pilots. They would both recover fully in the hospital. As passengers evacuated down the emergency slides, many stopped to hug Lexi. The mother with 2 young children was crying. You saved my babies. Thank you. Thank you so much. The businessman who had doubted her knelt down to her level. Tears were on his face. I'm sorry I said you couldn't do it. You're the bravest person I've ever met in my entire life. An elderly man took her hand. God sent us an angel today. Bless you, sweetheart. Lexi couldn't speak. She was too overwhelmed. She just nodded and hugged Mr. Bear tight against her chest. As paramedics carried the unconscious pilots off the aircraft, FBI agents were already moving through the cabin. They had been coordinating with air traffic control during the entire crisis. They knew someone on board had poisoned the pilot's coffee. They found him in seat 18C. Michael Torres was sitting with his head in his hands, sobbing. When the agents approached, he didn't resist. He just looked up at them with red eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. I never meant to hurt anyone. At the FBI field office, Torres confessed everything. He explained about the custody dispute with his ex-wife. The crushed Ambien. His plan to cause a medical emergency so the flight would return to Chicago. I mixed up the coffee pots, he said, crying. I was in a hurry. I was panicked. I put it in the crew's coffee by mistake. I didn't mean to poison the pilots. I just wanted to see my kids. The FBI agent across the table showed no sympathy. Because of your actions, 234 people almost died. An 11-year-old child had to land a commercial jet. Torres put his face in his hands. I know. I know. What have I done? He was charged with 234 counts of attempted murder. Poisoning flight crew. Endangering an aircraft. The potential sentence was life in prison without parole. At his sentencing 6 months later, Torres made a statement to the court. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to everyone on that flight. To the pilots. To that brave little girl who saved everyone. I was desperate to see my children. And now, because of what I did, I'll never see them again. My children will grow up knowing their father almost killed 234 people. I destroyed my family trying to save it. The judge showed no mercy. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. As guards led Torres away, he was still crying. Within hours, Lexi's face was everywhere. Every news channel in the world was covering the story. 11-year-old lands commercial jet after pilots poisoned. Dead fighter pilot's daughter saves 234 lives. Call sign Falcon, the girl who honored her father's legacy. Reporters camped outside the hotel where Lexi was staying with her Aunt Sarah. Everyone wanted an interview. The story was incredible. Unbelievable. Inspiring. 3 days after the incident, the airline and the FBI organized a press conference. Lexi sat at a table with microphones pointed at her, cameras flashing, hundreds of reporters shouting questions. She looked so small behind that table. So young. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "I was terrified every single second," she said. "I wanted to quit so many times. But my daddy taught me that being scared is okay, but quitting is not. Everyone on that plane was depending on me. I couldn't quit." A reporter raised her hand. "Lexi, what would you say to your father if he was here right now?" Lexi's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away from the cameras. "I'd say, I kept my promise, Daddy. I used everything you taught me. And I hope I made you proud." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Another reporter asked, "Are you a hero?" Lexi shook her head. "I'm not a hero. My daddy was the hero. He's the one who trained me. He's the one who prepared me for this. He saved those 234 people, not me. He did it by being the best father he could be. By giving me the knowledge I needed to survive." The press conference video went viral. It was viewed over 200 million times in the first week. Lexi's story inspired people all over the world. 1 week after the incident, Colonel Webb and the entire squadron flew to Montana. 20 pilots in their dress uniforms came to honor one of their own. They met Lexi in a private ceremony at the Billings Air Force Base. When Lexi walked into the room and saw all of them standing at attention, she started crying. These were her daddy's friends. His brothers and sisters in arms. The people who had flown with him, fought beside him, mourned him. Colonel Webb stepped forward carrying a carefully folded package. "Falcon, your daddy would be so proud of you. What you did on that aircraft embodied everything he taught you about courage, skill, and grace under pressure." He unfolded the package. It was a flight suit. An official U.S. Air Force flight suit, custom-made in Lexi's small size. "This is for you," Webb said. Lexi took it with shaking hands. Above the heart was a patch that read, "Falcon." On the shoulder was the squadron patch. "You're an honorary member of this squadron now," Webb said. "Forever." Lexi put on the flight suit. It was too big on her small frame, but it was the most meaningful thing she had ever worn besides her daddy's jacket. Then Colonel Webb handed her something else. He opened a small box. Inside was her daddy's actual call sign patch. The one with the coiled viper. The one he had worn on his final flight. "Viper wanted you to have this someday," Webb said softly. "He told me a year before he died, if anything happens to me, give this to Falcon when she's ready. I think you're ready now." Lexi took the patch with trembling hands. She held it against her heart and sobbed. All 20 pilots stood at attention and saluted her. She was one of them now. A pilot. A warrior. A daughter carrying her father's legacy. The 234 passengers from Flight 1288 stayed in contact after the incident. They formed a support group, helping each other process the trauma of what they had experienced. But they also wanted to do something for the girl who saved them. They started a fundraiser. Every passenger contributed. But it went beyond that. When news of the fundraiser spread, people from all over the world donated. Thousands of people who had never met Lexi but were inspired by her story. Within 2 months, they had raised $1.8 million for Lexi's college fund. The businessman from seat 12A, the one who had doubted her, contributed $50,000. He included a note. "Lexi, I'm sorry I doubted you. You taught me to never underestimate people based on their appearance or age. You're going to do amazing things in your life, and I'm honored to help make that possible." Hundreds of passengers wrote messages. "Thank you for saving my life. My children have a mother because of you. You're the bravest person I've ever known." When Lexi's Aunt Sarah showed her the messages, Lexi started crying. "I don't deserve this," she said. "I just did what Daddy taught me." "That's exactly why you deserve it, honey," Sarah said, hugging her. "You honored your father's memory in the most incredible way possible." 6 months after the incident, Lexi was seeing a therapist. Dr. Martinez specialized in childhood trauma and PTSD. Lexi had nightmares almost every night. She would wake up screaming, convinced the plane was crashing. She would see the unconscious pilots in her dreams. Feel the yoke shaking in her hands. Hear the passengers screaming. "You experienced something that would traumatize most adults," Dr. Martinez told her gently. "You're not broken. You're healing. And healing takes time." "I saved everyone," Lexi said quietly. "But I still feel sad all the time." "Why?" "Because saving those people doesn't replace losing your daddy. Those are two separate things. You can be proud of what you did and still grieve for your father. Both feelings can exist at the same time." Lexi cried a lot in therapy. She talked about her daddy. About how much she missed him. About how flying reminded her of him and how that hurt sometimes. "He prepared you for the worst moment of your life," Dr. Martinez said. "Do you understand how much love that took? How much he must have loved you to spend all those hours training you?" "I do now," Lexi said. "I didn't understand when I was little. I thought it was just a fun game. But he was showing me he loved me by making sure I could survive even if he was gone." Slowly, over many months, Lexi began to heal. The nightmares came less frequently. She could talk about the flight without breaking down. She could look at photos of her daddy and smile at the memories instead of just feeling sad. She was going to be okay. It would take time. But she was going to be okay. 1 year after the incident, the FAA held a special ceremony. They were giving Lexi official recognition as the youngest person ever to successfully land a commercial aircraft in an emergency situation. Airlines had already contacted her aunt, saying they would fast-track Lexi for pilot training when she was old enough. They wanted to hire her the day she got her license. The world assumed Lexi would become a pilot. It seemed obvious. She had the talent. The training. The experience. But at the ceremony, in front of hundreds of people and dozens of cameras, Lexi surprised everyone. "I don't think I want to be a pilot when I grow up," she said into the microphone. The room went silent. Reporters looked confused. Lexi continued, "My daddy taught me to fly so that I could save myself and others if I ever needed to. And I did that. I used his gift. But flying reminds me of losing him. It makes me sad. I think I want to be something else. Maybe a doctor, so I can save people in a different way. Or maybe a teacher, so I can help kids learn important things like my daddy helped me." She paused, looking directly at the cameras. "And that's okay. Because Daddy didn't teach me to fly so that I would become a pilot. He taught me to fly so that I would survive. And I did. His mission is complete. He gave me what I needed, and I used it. Now I get to choose what I want to do with my life. And I choose to honor him by being happy, not by forcing myself to do something that makes me sad." The room erupted in applause. Later, a reporter asked her, "Do you think your father would be disappointed that you don't want to be a pilot?" Lexi smiled. "No. Daddy would want me to be happy. He would want me to choose my own path. He gave me wings, but he never told me where I had to fly. 2 years after Flight 1288, Lexi was 13 years old. She was taller now, though still small for her age. Her front tooth had grown back. She had a new group of friends at school who knew about what she had done but didn't treat her differently because of it. She was doing well in school. She liked science and English class. She had joined the soccer team. She was learning to play guitar. She was a normal teenager. And that was what she wanted most. One Saturday in April, Aunt Sarah drove Lexi to Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. They made this trip twice a year, on her daddy's birthday and on the anniversary of his death. Lexi walked alone to her father's grave. The headstone was simple. Colonel Marcus Viper Morgan, United States Air Force, loving father hero. Lexi knelt down and placed fresh flowers on the grave. White lilies. They were Daddy's favorite. She sat cross-legged in the grass and talked to the headstone like she always did. "Hi Daddy. I miss you. I miss you every single day. But I wanted to tell you that I'm okay now. I'm happy. I got straight A's on my report card this year. I scored 3 goals in soccer this season. Aunt Sarah says I'm growing up into a beautiful young woman." She paused, picking at the grass. "Daddy, remember that flight? When I landed the plane? I think about it a lot. I used everything you taught me. Every single thing. You were with me the whole time. In my head. Your voice guiding me. Telling me what to do." Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "You saved 234 people that day, Daddy. Not me. You. Because you loved me enough to prepare me for anything. You gave me knowledge. You gave me confidence. You gave me wings." A sound made her look up. An F-22 Raptor was flying overhead, impossibly fast and graceful. Colonel Webb had arranged it as a tribute, just like every year. Lexi watched the jet climb into the blue sky and disappear into the clouds. "I love you, Daddy. I'll always be your Falcon. Even if I never fly again. Because being Falcon doesn't mean being a pilot. It means being brave. It means being prepared. It means doing the impossible when people need you." She stood up and saluted the grave, just like the Air Force had taught her. "Thank you for your gift, Daddy. Thank you for everything." As she walked back to where Aunt Sarah was waiting, Lexi felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Her daddy had done his job. He had prepared her for the worst moment of her life. And when that moment came, she was ready. Not because she was special. Not because she was a hero. But because she had a father who loved her enough to give her the knowledge that could save her life. And 234 others. Lexi Morgan graduated from medical school at age 25. She specialized in emergency medicine. She wanted to save lives, just in a different way than her daddy had. On her white coat, she wore 2 patches. One was her medical school patch. The other was a small embroidered patch with a coiled viper snake. Patients sometimes asked about it. "That was my father's call sign," she would explain. "He was a fighter pilot. He taught me that being prepared can save lives. That's why I became a doctor." She never told them about Flight 1288 unless they recognized her name. And most didn't. The story had faded from the news years ago. She was just Dr. Morgan now. Just another doctor trying to help people. And that was exactly how she wanted it. But sometimes, late at night after a difficult shift, she would go up to the hospital roof and look at the stars. She would think about her daddy. About those hours in the basement simulator. About that impossible day when she was 11 years old and flew 234 people to safety. And she would whisper the same words she had whispered in that cockpit. "Thank you, Daddy. Thank you for preparing me. Thank you for loving me enough to give me wings." Somewhere in the stars, she liked to think, call sign Viper was flying formation with her. Always her wingman. Always watching over his falcon. Forever. This story is dedicated to all the fathers and mothers who prepare their children not because they want them to face danger, but because love means ensuring your child can survive anything. To the parents who teach, who train, who pass on their knowledge and skills. To the ones who give their children wings, even knowing they might fly away. And to the children who honor their parents' memories by using what they were taught. You are your parents' greatest legacy.